31. The words of King Lemuel, the oracle that his mother taught him. Lemuel is probably a name for Solomon. It's the words, or it's an oracle. It means weighty message. Verse 2. What, my son? It's a question. And what, the son of my womb? And what, the son of my vows? Kind of like Hannah. Maybe she made a vow for this child. It could be. And if it's Solomon, we're talking about Bathsheba, who, if it's her, is, among other things, a woman who knows the Lord and lives for him. A godly woman who made a vow and received a son. Verse 3, do not give your strength to women, or your ways to that which destroys kings. Okay, the idea is to give yourself to a woman who's going to lead you the wrong way. A woman who's going to lead in the first place, because that's not right, especially for a king. The king is to lead. But there are some women who don't know any other way. They're going to try to take over. And this is a warning to the king. And if it's the mother of Solomon, this is a warning that Solomon really needed. And unfortunately, it didn't work for him. He didn't take the advice. He ended up with a whole bunch of wives that led him astray. He allowed idolatry into the precincts of Jerusalem. And, it's one of the greatest sins in the most ironic type of sins, because he was a man who was so wise and yet did some things that are just so remarkably foolish. People in power can exploit women. It's part of living a self-indulgent lifestyle. And here's a warning to guard against that. Don't seek just to satisfy your natural inclinations, and especially your sin nature, because a lot of the things involved in walking with God and living for Him are going to go against our natural inclinations. We need to put off the old person, put on the new person, and walk with Him. Okay, verse 4. It is not for kings, O Lemuel, it is not for kings to drink wine, nor for princes to desire strong drink. Okay, here's another verse that we need to just send down to Washington, D.C., send up to Congress or something. Alcohol, they are famous for alcohol up there in Washington, D.C., and it's really too bad, because rulers need to be sober. Not pursuing the self-indulgent lifestyle, but wisdom and what is best for the people. It's not for kings to drink wine, nor for princes to if you're in the church, you have a noble position in Christ. We have things that are far more important than pursuing the kind of self-indulgence that we're reading about here. Verse 5, lest they drink and forget the law and deprive the oppressed of their justice. The problem with a self-indulgent ruler or people is that good people suffer. Really good people suffer for it. How about the father or husband who spends the whole paycheck on drugs and alcohol? What are the kids going to do? Give strong drink. All right, here's a legitimate use for strong drink. Verse 6. Not for someone who needs to run a family, but someone like this. Give strong drink to the one who is perishing, and wine to those that are in anguish. Let them drink and forget their poverty and remember their misery no more. Are you preparing for death? Go ahead, drink up. Why are you getting drunk? If you have things to do, if you have responsibilities and people that are counting on you, the welfare of others is at stake. It's not time to get drunk. It's time to be serious in the Lord. But there is a legitimate use for a strong drink. It's people who are perishing. Don't live like someone who's about to die. But then again, if someone is about to die, if you are about to die, go ahead. It's something the Lord has given to his people to take the edge off. Some things in life are so hard. And if you're on hospice, I'm sorry. It must be really hard. And go ahead and take the morphine patch or, whatever. They have some great drugs and things that can help you kind of make you a little more comfortable. And that's okay. It's perfectly fine. Verse 7. Let them drink and forget their poverty and remember their misery no more. Poverty takes many forms. The strong drink is for people who are poor. If you want to be poor, there's one way to go. But look, if you'd rather not be poor, put that strong drink aside. That's not your friend. It's your enemy. If you're trying to not be poor, you don't want that. It's for people who are ready to die. That's really what it's for. Okay, speak up for those who cannot speak for themselves. For those appointed to die. Okay, when is the last time you did this? Speak up for those who cannot speak for themselves, for all those appointed to die. Have you done this? It's a command. The Lord is telling his people to do this. Speak up for those who cannot speak for themselves. Do you know anyone like that? For those appointed to die. Do you know anyone like that? The sin of abortion is the worst sin in all of human history. And when we get to heaven, we're going to be surprised at just how bad it is. Even people who know about it, they're still going to be shocked at just how bad it is and how we have allowed this to happen here in the United States of America and the world in general. Babies can't speak for themselves. They can't even tell you when something is hurting. All they can do is cry. They can't even tell you what's wrong. They can't speak for themselves. And if they are appointed to die, you have a responsibility to try to rescue them. And if you just turn the other way, the Lord does not approve. Verse 9, speak up, judge righteously, and plead the cause of the poor and needy. We have charities in the United States. A lot of countries don't. There are places in the world where people are just stuck and they are in poverty and there's no help in sight. And we need to be concerned about those people. Give to foreign missions. Give to relief agencies. God bless them. I know of this one in the Baptist Foreign Mission Board has ministries in these certain refugee camps that I was reading about a while ago, and it's just tragic when you read about how many people are stuck in these refugee camps, and they don't have hardly anything. They need help, and sometimes there is this warfare that dislodges huge groups of people, and they need help. We need to be concerned about those people. Don't be afraid to give to the Foreign Mission Board. A virtuous woman who can find. Her price is above rubies. Okay, now this passage, verses 10 through 31 to the end of the book of Proverbs, this passage is about the virtuous woman. It's an acrostic. It goes in successive order through the Hebrew alphabet. Each line begins with the next letter in the Hebrew alphabet. So it begins at first line begins with Aleph, and Beit, Gimel, Dalet, Hey, so on. And so this line, which begins with Aleph, a virtuous woman, Ishet Hail, Ishet Hail, Ishet Hail, is a virtuous woman. You know where you see that in the Old Testament? Ruth was a virtuous woman, Ishet Hail. You know who else was? Boaz. Yeah. Boaz was the virtuous man. Ruth was the virtuous woman. It's just an amazing story. The book of Ruth is amazing all the way through. But virtuous woman, Ruth 3:11, and Ruth 2:1. Okay, she's more valuable than rubies. Not that she could be bought or sold, but there's this great value. We are perfected in Christ, and ultimately the church is the virtuous woman. What a wonderful story. Rags to riches. We don't deserve any of this, yet we have this wonderful heritage and bright and glorious future. Verse 11, the heart of her husband trusts in her, and he will not have lack of gain. So trust is a big part of life. Don't squander it. Don't tarnish it. If you have the trust of your spouse, value that. Be careful to preserve that. She will do him good and not harm all the days of her life. So this is part of trust. Verse 2. She does him good because of love. She loves him. He loves her. Ephesians 5:25. Verse 13, she seeks wool and flax, and with delight she works with her hands. So, she's willing to do things with her hands. She's not going to just sit back and, require other people. But she's actually going to work with her hands. A person who's not afraid to work has an advantage over someone who is reluctant to work. Verse 14, the Apostle Paul worked with his hands. He actually made a point of that. He says, these hands of mine have supplied our needs. It's pretty good. It's commendable. Verse 14, she is like the merchant ships. She brings her food from afar. There's a certain amount of creativity reflected there. The Lord has given her this gift, a creative personality, a good imagination. Use the gifts that the Lord has given you. Every single one of us, we have gifts and abilities, and our role as the people of God is to discover them, cultivate them for the glory of God. Use your gifts. Be creative with what the Lord has entrusted to you. And so also her husband is supportive. Husbands, support your wives. They have gifts and abilities that can be a blessing to you and so many others. You need to help them develop what they have. Okay, then verse 15. She rises while it's still dark and gives food to her household and portions to her maidens. So she has maidens, servant girls. She has servants in the household. Now, some people, they'll look at that and they'll say, servants? She has servants. Isn't that an excess? Aren't you being self-indulgent there? Isn't that excessive to have servants? No. Actually, to have servants is a blessing to the servants. You are providing for them gainful employment. You're providing an income to people who need a job. That's good. That's very good. And so she not only has servants, she's going to take care of her servants. She's going to make sure they're cared for, as well as her household. And this entrepreneurial attitude is biblical. The Lord, admires this. It's commendable as the Lord describes this woman who is the virtuous woman. Verse 16, she considers a field and buys it. From her earnings, she plants a vineyard. It's okay to make money. Nothing wrong with that at all. In fact, Christian business people can have an influence and an impact that others may not have. They get to interact with people where they live, and they can maybe reach people. And they can also just set an example. People can look at them and see an example of someone who is living well and lives for the Lord. Verse 17, she girds herself with strength and makes her arms strong. Okay, physical exercise is okay, we need to work our physical selves. We don't want to indulge the sin nature, but nevertheless, we have a physical body. We need to care for our physical body, make sure we're staying healthy. And a good amount of exercise is good for the brain, clears out the cobwebs, gets the blood flowing, and you will feel better. You will perform better. You'll be able to think more clearly and more effectively and employ that for the glory of God. She makes her arms strong. Go ahead, get some exercise. Verse 18, she understands that her merchandise is good and her candle does not go out at night. Okay, look, you need rest. It's part of being wise. Get the right amount of rest. Maybe you need a full night's sleep every night. You go ahead and take it. But just don't take advantage. Don't misuse that freedom that you have. You don't want to sleep too much because that's just going to bring harm. But with the right amount of rest and so on, and exercise and everything else, you can go ahead and take advantage of your time. Make things work for you. She understands her merchandise is good. See, she has a good understanding. Strike while the iron's hot. Sometimes an opportunity is only there for a short time. Take advantage of it. Maybe the Lord has brought that there at that time. You need to go ahead and take advantage of that. Her merchandise is good, means she's making things. Maybe she's buying and selling, and maybe she's producing, but she's taking advantage of the marketplace. It's okay to participate in the surrounding community. In fact, the Lord wants us to be stable citizens, model citizens. In fact, citizens who are strong and stable, can be counted on, can be examples of what it's like to live for the Lord. Be real people. We're not unrealistic people. And we're not people who ignore reality. We are people who are victorious, even in, the hard circumstances of reality. Okay. Verse 19, she puts her hand to the distaff and she takes hold of the spindle. That's like spinning and weaving. So she's working again with her hands, making things work, and sometimes it's more wise to employ someone to do the weaving than it is to do the actual weaving yourself. Maybe, your time could be better used in this area, and you have enough resources to employ someone to do that area. And that's part of the wisdom the Lord has given to you. But you just can't be afraid to work. Working is part of being successful in life and in the Lord. She stretches her hand out to the poor. Yes, she reaches out her hand to the needy. Now, so far, you get the impression that she is affluent. Things are working for her. She has resources. And so, you get the idea she's affluent. And the danger with affluence is to ignore other people, to think, it's because I'm such a smart person that I have this good stuff. And those poor people, it's just because they haven't been wise. They haven't been smart. That's why they're poor. They let them have what they deserve. Well, that's not a godly attitude. Even though maybe they are getting what they deserve, even though maybe you do have good things because of your wisdom, even with all of that in mind, we care about the poor. The Lord cares about the poor. And so do we who know the Lord. And so we care about the poor. And we give to the poor not because they deserve it, because they don't. Poor people don't deserve. People don't deserve mercy. They don't deserve grace. But the Lord just gives mercy and grace all day long. And so people who are successful in the Lord, they're going to be successful in business. They're going to be successful in caring about the needs of others. She stretches out her hand to the poor, reaches out her hand to the needy. She reaches out. She doesn't just wait to be approached. She reaches out, cares about them. Verse 21, she's not afraid for her household when it snows, because her household are all clothed with scarlet. So when it snows, she's set. She has prepared in advance. It's okay to plan. It's okay to look ahead and see that winter is coming and to make preparations for it. We don't just have to live a reactionary lifestyle. We can look ahead. Where do you want to be next year? Where do you want to be 5 years from now? Where do you want to be 6 months from now? Or when winter comes? Well, you need to plan for that. You need to use the wisdom the Lord has given you to prepare for what is coming. Verse 22, she makes coverings of tapestry for herself. She is clothed in fine linen and purple. Fine linen, that's what the church is wearing in Revelation chapter 19. It's in contrast to chapters 17 and 18 in Revelation. The church is dressed in fine linen, bright and clean. Notice that she doesn't neglect herself. To do all of these other good things doesn't mean she has to neglect herself. It works together. Take care of yourself. It's okay to wear nice clothes. It's okay to have nice things. Nothing wrong with that at all. Verse 23, her husband is respected in the gates, where he sits among the elders of the land. The husband in this context is respected because of her. She adds to his position, his esteem in the gates, doesn't detract from it. She adds to it. Be sure to marry well. Don't marry a fool. You're going to have a hard time. Marry someone who's wise. Verse 24, she makes fine linen and sells it and supplies sashes to the merchants. Business is commendable. It's an opportunity to put your Christianity on display, to show in the marketplace a godly work ethic, a godly business practice. It's probably going to stand out too, because the marketplace is a lot of times known for ungodliness. But you're there showing what it's like to do things right. It can have a huge impact. Verse 25, strength and honor are her clothing, and she will rejoice in times to come. She has a dress code, and it's dignity. She dresses well. You can ask your daughter this question. Is what you're wearing dignified? We're not holding to any specific regulation, but are you dignified? She opens her mouth with wisdom and instruction of kindness is on her tongue. She opens her mouth with the wisdom and instruction of kindness. She's kind to people. There's kindness in her speech, but also instruction. She has wisdom and is able to share it with others, but in a way that is kind, in a way that people can receive. And you can't fake this. From the overflow of the heart, the mouth speaks. Also, that's Matthew 12:34, but also James chapter 3, verse 17 reads this way, "But the wisdom that is from above is first pure, then peaceable, gentle, easy to be entreated, full of mercy and good fruits, without partiality and without hypocrisy. And the fruit of righteousness is sown in peace of them that make peace." Amen. Verse 27, "She watches over the affairs of her household and does not eat the bread of idleness." The Lord requires people to take care of their families. 1 Timothy chapter 5, verse 8. Take care of your family. It's your first church. Also, idleness is harmful, generally speaking, because the enemy is not idle. If you're taking a break, the enemy is usually not taking a break. And you can take a break from your work, but don't take a break from God. Be careful, be vigilant, because there's a war going on. Have your armor in place, Ephesians chapter 6. Verse 28, "Her children rise up and call her blessed, her husband also, and he praises her." Your kids know you. Your kids know who you are. They know what you care about. They know what you value. They know if you're kind or generous, and they know if you love the Lord. It's one thing for your husband to love you, but to praise you means you are doing something right. Okay, verse 29, "Many women do noble things, but you surpass them all." This is the praise of the husband, verse 29. Or this is the praise the husband gives. Her husband praises her, verse 28. Well, here's the praise. "You surpass them all." You know who this is, right? It's the church. It's what Jesus is going to say of us. Yeah, we're not there yet. Unfortunately, so much of the church is like Laodicea. It's just, and Jesus in Revelation chapters 2 and 3 has a message for the church. There are some parts of the church that, aren't doing so well. But there are some parts that are. And the Lord has nothing bad to say about them. The church of Smyrna and the church of Philadelphia. Okay, verse 30, "Charm is deceitful and beauty is vain, but a woman who fears the Lord shall be praised." You want the praise of verse 29? Be the woman of verse 30. Some people are charming. They think they can talk you into anything, but, a woman who fears the Lord shall be praised. Beauty is, it's something, but it's temporary. It goes like that. Kind of like our lives. You can live to be 200 years old, and it's still just gone so quickly. It's better to think about what is truly important: our relationships with people and our relationship to the Lord. If you know the Lord and you're living for Him, you have glory ahead. There's glory in the future with God. And if you don't, then there's not. And that's what life is all about: to live for God and to serve Him only. Verse 31, "Give to her the fruit of her hands, and let her own works praise her in the gate." What you do That speaks of you. You know, what you do will one day bear fruit. Let it be fruit that will last. 1 Corinthians chapter 3, verses 14 and 15. John chapter 15, verse 16. And your works, what you have done, will eventually, for good or bad, become obvious to all. You want to store up for yourself treasure in heaven, not just treasure on earth. And we want to be, whether a man or woman, we want to be, no matter who we are, we want to be like this person described here in Proverbs chapter 31, and especially as the church, we a woman of noble character.